Hello, welcome back to the Guitar Craft and Other Stuff podcast. I am your host, Andre Flood. I want to start today with a very quick story, and I promise you the story is 100% true. I'm not being silly. This actually happened to me, and it's how I learned that I'm a perfectionist. And it happened about a year or two ago. So someone said to me, Andre, you're a perfectionist. And I literally said to them, no, I'm not a perfectionist. I never get anything perfect. And I find that really funny, and I've told that to a few people because I never realized I was a perfectionist until I was being a perfectionist for 28 years of my life. Because no one ever said it to me. I never associated myself with that type of a thing, but it is obviously 100% true. And if you try to learn difficult songs as a perfectionist, it is going to be a mentally daunting process. So this podcast is obviously being recorded because I recently posted myself playing a cover of Tomo Fujita's song, Just Funky. And you can watch that on YouTube if you'd like, but you don't need to watch that to understand today's podcast. Nonetheless, go watch it, give it a like, give it a comment. I'd really appreciate that. Okay. So what I want to do is tell you the important thing about learning other people's music. If you want to play other people's music, that is. What you'll learn, some of the benefits, some of the drawbacks, some of the difficulties, and just the process of being honest with yourself as an artist. And if you're an artist for the world, like if you're not just someone who's playing in their bedroom, being honest for the rest of the world. I think it's very important in terms of art and craftsmanship with music. Okay. Let's get into it. The first thing I want to say is that the version of the song Just Funky that I posted on YouTube is not the original version of the song that I learned. Now you'll note the title of the video says, playing Tomo Fujita's most difficult song, My Own Way. Well, I was playing around with that song for a while and attempting to play it just like Tomo Fujita. Couple of months, picking it up, putting it down, playing around with it here and there. And about a week ago, people were saying in this Rick Beato video and the Novo guitar video, hey, you should play more, post some stuff of you playing, so on and so forth. So I said, well, I haven't posted anything of me playing in a while. Let me just get together something to post. So last week is when I started working on that song in terms of trying to make it ready to be performed. And a couple of days in, I decided that I'm not going to play it like Tomo. I'm going to try to play it like myself. Now, there are a few things about this that are important to understand. Playing difficult songs, playing unique arrangements, just like the person who made it famous, is very, very difficult. And we need to separate a few types of difficulty in terms of learning music. Now, a lot of people talk about the song Master of Puppets by Metallica. Classic song, all downpicking, very, very technically challenging to learn how to downpick that fast. But I wouldn't say Master of Puppets, the downpicking, I wouldn't say that is uniquely difficult. That isn't something that anyone can't learn. And I say that because once you learn the actual technique of downpicking fast, all you have to do is learn how to downpick and then slowly build up your endurance and timing over time. And once you are able to get to the speed of the song itself, you've done it. It's done. For the most part. It might take you a long time to build up to that endurance and build up to that speed. But what I'm saying is the technique of downpicking on the guitar that's going to produce the desired result of the song itself. By contrast, if you've ever tried to play, a Tommy Emmanuel song or a Jonathan Kreisberg arrangement of a jazz standard, what you're going to quickly realize is that it's not just the notes, it's not just the rhythm, it's not just the chords, it's not just the timing. When you're playing an arrangement of someone who, arranged this song in a special way, a significant portion of the sound is the person. It's the way that their hands move on an instrument. It's the way that they slide from one note to another, or the way that they hammer on from one note to another. It's the way their timing is slightly off and imperfect in a particular section that they do over and over. What I'm saying is the person's idiosyncrasies within music are built into that arrangement. And then when you attempt to do the arrangement the way that they do it, you're going to notice it's very hard because you're fighting your idiosyncrasies and trying to play their idiosyncrasies. And I do think that this is important for us to try doing sometimes if we're into that particular thing. And this is why. And we'll use an example outside of music because I think that will help us drive home the point here. If you were to ever, let's think about acting, right? We've all seen movies and actors and all of that stuff. So maybe a year ago, Clive Owen was on a TV show where he was playing Bill Clinton, right? He was acting as Bill Clinton in the TV show. And the difficult thing about that is everyone knows who Bill Clinton is. Everyone knows what he sounds like, his posture, his smile, all of that stuff. And so whenever the audience is watching Clive Owen try to be Bill Clinton, we're all thinking to ourselves, okay, is he doing it right? Is he getting the essence of Bill? And I'm sure Clive Owen as an actor was going through the same thing himself when he was perfecting or rehearsing to play the role. He's looking at himself in the mirror saying, do I look like Bill? Am I holding my lips the same way? He's recording his own voice saying, do I sound like him? Am I getting his accents? Am I getting all of that stuff that he does that everyone is expecting to see? And the beautiful thing about doing that, about imitating someone else, is that you will, as a result, learn about yourself. So we'll use the same example. If you were to try to imitate Bill Clinton's accent, his voice, and you record yourself trying to sound like him, you're going to hear your voice and you're going to say, oh no, I'm not rolling my R the way he rolls his R, because I naturally roll my R differently. I naturally roll my R like this. I naturally pronounce my TH this way. I naturally have more rasp in my voice where he doesn't, so on and so forth. And so you'll see that because you're trying to be like someone else, you're learning who you are in a way. That other person that you're trying to imitate is shining a light on your own uniqueness. And that adds another layer to our playing. Because we then become more familiar with our own idiosyncrasies. Does that mean we need to change them? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that we have the ability to recognize them and manipulate them if and when we want to. And that's an important thing to be able to do. So I would say just trying to play the song like Tomo Fujita, I learned a lot about the way that I strum, the way that I grip chords, the way that I might be inefficient in certain positions, all of that stuff. And I think it's very, very valuable, even if I never play the song again, because I know these things now forever about myself and I can use them to continue to hone my own unique voice. Now, that's the first difficulty, but that's the first beautiful thing we learn. The difficulty is that the way the song inherently sounds, the arrangement of the song that people are used to inherently has the person's idiosyncrasies. But when you try to mimic their idiosyncrasies, you learn more about yourself. And you can then exploit that about yourself in the future if you so choose. Change things if you don't like the way you sound. so on and so forth. The next difficult thing about learning these difficult arrangements is the time commitment. Okay. And I'll give you an example. So there are, and this is true for every one of these types of songs, there might be a particular section that is 4 seconds long. That's very, very difficult. That only happens one time in this 60-second song. And it might take you 10, 15, 20, 30 hours, maybe even more, to perfect that 1, 4, 5-second passage. And so from a time efficiency standpoint, man, that can be very, very daunting, thinking to yourself, I might have to practice this section for 10 hours and it's only going to last for 4 seconds. It's only going to happen one time. And I'm never going to be able to use this idea ever again in the rest of my playing. Now, for someone like me, I like to practice things generally that give me a lot of bang for my buck. So I'm not someone who will drill a complicated lick for hours. I'll learn a simple lick and then practice manipulating it for hours. That way, when I learn one thing, I really learned dozens, if not hundreds of things, rather than learning one thing and only having one thing. So for me personally, that idea of working on one lick, one portion of the song, 1 4-second passage for 10 hours, 15, 20 hours, that's a lot for me personally. But I think it's important to do every now and then. And, if you like that style of music, if you like imitating other people, you might do it more than that. But I'm talking about for me personally, even though I don't do a lot of things like this, it's important to do occasionally. And I think and the reason I say that is because it really hones your precision from a mental perspective, from a physical perspective. When you spend hours doing one lick, your ability to focus deeply, to feel the instrument deeply, to hear deeply, all of that stuff gets honed to a new level. And although you may never play that same lick again, when you go to play other things, that same depth of hearing and visualizing and actually feeling the strings, that level of depth will then be there for you in the future. At least I believe so. And that's been my experience for sure. And something else related to this that I want to talk about with this topic is the idea of whether or not you should play the song like the actual person. Now, of course, this is going to be personal preference. If your goal is to play it identically to Tommy Emmanuel or Tomo Fujita, that's your goal, that's your objective as an individual guitarist, then you should spend your time doing that because that's what you want to do. For me personally, I also think that in addition to playing it like the person, because keep in mind, I spent a lot of time working on it as Tomo Fujita before I worked on it as me. I feel that playing it your own way is also very rewarding, or it can be. Because once you spend the time dedicated to sounding like that person, and then you give yourself the freedom to play it like how you would play it, you're really opening up a different type of creativity. You're getting even more out of the song. And I think at that point, you're learning some other things that you can now use in other music because it's coming directly from you and your tendencies. So I, of course, played it very differently from how Tomo Fujita plays it. I use my thumb and my fingers instead of using a pick and all of that stuff. Added a solo to the end of it. And in so doing, I really feel like I refined my own right hand technique. I really feel like I refined my cleanliness of left hand when it comes to recording. We'll talk about recording in a second. And I think all of those things are going to be helpful for me in the future. And the reason I know this is because the way I played this song is similar to the way I played the Corey Wong song I covered. Now, the Corey Wong song I covered almost exactly like Corey Wong. And because the way I would have played it is similar to the way he actually does play it. But when I went to cover the Tomo Fujita song, and when I went to play it my way, I used techniques that I learned in that song, or that I expressed in that song. So I can already see the connection there between the two, that it's a right hand thing that I like to do, that I'm doing from both things. And I added depth to that technique in the Corey Wong song. And when I applied it to the Tomo Fujita song, it was already there pretty quickly. When I went to play it my way, I didn't have to drill it for a very long time. Not at all. I had some few ideas, I worked on them, and it was just kind of there. Because I did the drilling before on a different song, if that makes sense. Of course, it is also usually easier to play it a way that you would want to play it, as opposed to the way that the person would want to play it. And in my opinion, once you go to play it your own way, you have the ability to not necessarily hold yourself up to the same standard as the other artist. Because we have to remember, the way that Tomo Fujita plays Just Funky, the way he plays it is the way he plays it because that's the way his hands work, his brain, his body, all of that. And I'm not that person, obviously. And so as a perfectionist, you can really get into a deep rabbit hole of trying to be someone you're not if you're just endlessly trying to play it the way that they play it. And I personally don't want to spend my time playing guitar doing that, just trying to sound like somebody else. Again, that's your goal. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just talking about for me personally. Now, the last thing I want to talk about has to do with what I consider honesty as a musician, if that makes sense. So I'm someone who loves the idea of live music and improvisation and being able to play what's in your heart or what's in your ability at any time. What do I mean by that? When I record covers, when I record even gear videos and I play a little something in the video to demo the instrument, I make it a point to never take like 300 takes to get a part sounding right. I pretty much play it a couple of times, 2-3 times, and then I just record it, and I might take 3-4 takes, and that's it. Right? If it's a 1 hour gear video, if it's a 30-minute gear video, and there's 2 minutes of playing, I might have cut that down from 3 minutes of playing. But I don't play for an hour to get 2 minutes of music. And to some of you who are not deep into YouTube or Instagram or even recording music, that might seem kind of obvious, but let me tell you, you'd be surprised how long people take to record a 30-second Instagram video. Sometimes it takes them days to perfect a 30-second Instagram video. I kid you not. Hour after hour after hour. And a lot of times, that's why it sounds the way it does. That's why when you walk into Guitar Center, you never hear anyone playing that way. That's why when you see them perform live, they don't sound like the way that they sound on Instagram. Sometimes, right? And I'm not talking down on anybody because Instagram is not real life. It's a whole different skill. It's a whole different art. And there's nothing wrong with taking a lot of takes, mixing them together, then hand syncing over top of it to make it look polished. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying personally, as a guitar instructor, not as an influencer, right? Because that's not what I am. I'm a guitar teacher and a music professor. It's important to me that if I ever have a private lesson with a student and they say to me, oh, can you play me that section of the Tomo Fujita song you played? I want to learn it. It's important to me that I can immediately play it for them and it will sound almost exactly like it sounded when I recorded it. The idea of someone asking me to play something that I've played and then freezing because I can't play it well, because I didn't play it well for real in the recording, because I stitched it together to get a recording, a perfect take. That to me is very anxiety inducing. It's scary, very scary. And so when I record things, number one, I record them basically direct. Like I go through my Axe Effects, and the Axe Effects has built-in amps and all of that stuff, but I don't use a lot of processing. You can tell by the way it sounds, it's very clean. There's not a lot of anything. There's no syncing and recording and stitching together. There's none of that stuff. It's essentially as is. And again, if you're someone who likes perfection, if you're a perfectionist like I am, that can be a very difficult thing to do. That could be a difficult thing to get used to accept. But it's important to learn the lesson that music is not a perfection. Music is not perfect. Especially if you like improvised music or difficult music or technically challenging music. Unless you're Tommy Emmanuel, and there's only one Tommy Emmanuel, if you're not that guy, you're not going to be perfect. No one else is. And so I think it's important that you get used to your to your imperfections, you embrace them, you accept it. And if you want to put your music out there, put it out there, even if it's not perfect. You all heard the recording. You know that mine isn't perfect. Maybe I'll do a breakdown in the future explaining what I could have did better. That might be educational, but point being, it wasn't perfect, and it wasn't perfect because I'm not perfect. And related to the idea of guitar craft is obviously playing the guitar and performing the guitar and recording the guitar. And just the process of going direct into your laptop on a clean tone and playing into it, that process alone of doing that and listening back, that's going to make you better. If you listen honestly, if you try to get better from that, you will get better in so doing, 100%. And so I encourage you to learn other people's music. I encourage you to try to play it exactly like them. I encourage you to then play it like yourself. I encourage you to record it, to listen back. Even if you're not comfortable putting it out there for other people to hear, do it for yourself so that you can hear how you can get better as a musician. Because nothing will get you better than actually performing or recording or playing with other people. That's going to always get you faster, get you better a lot faster than just playing by yourself to yourself and never ever listening to it apart from when you're actually playing. Record yourself, play it back, play with other people, play it back, so on and so forth. So yeah, I just want to share some of those lessons that I learned from learning that song apart from the song itself. I hope that was educational. And I also hope that you now feel less insecure about posting your own music, even if it's not perfect. That's all for today. I'll talk to you soon.